Welcome to the premiere edition of Vital Living 55 Plus, a news and entertainment program for and about Takoma Park, Maryland residents aged 55 and older. Let me introduce myself. I'm Paula Lasowski, Seniors Program Manager for the Takoma Park Recreation Department and the host for this monthly program. The program will cover topics of interest along with interviews and presentations designed to educate and inform. Vital Living will be carried on your local cable stations listed below on your screen, and it will repeat several times throughout the month. This program was developed through a partnership between City TV and the Takoma Park Recreation Department as a way to reach out to seniors in the community. As we find ourselves in the midst of this COVID-19 pandemic, we are often cut off from family, friends, and activities we enjoy. More than ever before, we are looking for ways to connect with others in our community. This brings us to the main topic of this first program, social isolation in our communities and what we can do about it. There is an interconnectedness between social isolation, loneliness, and risks proposed to older adults based on social distancing. This can lead to depression and a decrease in mental and physical health. The COVID-19 pandemic has highlighted the need for community-based organizations to maintain the provision of services and programs for engaging and supporting older adults during this difficult time. To combat social isolation, the city has created ways to connect with older residents. The Takoma Park Recreation Department continues to offer many activities online virtually for active adults through the use of Zoom. I recently learned about Zoom and now host a weekly chat room on Mondays at 1 p.m. called TP Talk 55, where residents are welcome to drop in and have friendly conversation, a great way to connect with others in the community. In addition, we offer a Phone a Neighbor program, linking seniors with community volunteers on a weekly basis for friendly check-in phone calls. Recently, I discovered a long-standing service known as CARE, offered by the Takoma Park Police Department for residents who live alone. Our first guest is Chief Antonio DeVaul, who will tell us about this program. Good morning and welcome, Chief DeVaul. Thank you for taking time from your busy schedule to be with us this morning. For those residents who may not be familiar with you, please tell us a little about your background and how long you've been Chief of Police for the City of Takoma Park.
Good morning. It's an absolute pleasure to be here. My name is Tony DeVaul, and I'm the Chief of Police for the City of Takoma Park Police Department. I've been the Chief since January of 2018. This was actually a homecoming for me. I actually grew up here in the city, about a rock's throw from where we sit on Maple Avenue. So this was a homecoming for me because I really felt when I was looking for another job as I transitioned from the Park Police, where I spent 23 years, the last 6 as Chief, I wanted to come to a jurisdiction where I really could make a difference. And I remember fondly growing up in the city and the interaction I not only had with the police department, which was positive, but also city government. I had fond memories of interacting with numerous residents here in the city. In particular, some of our elderly residents at what's now called Victory Tower, which used to be called Takoma Towers. My friend and I delivered newspapers to the then Takoma Towers, and we made several positive connections with the elderly residents that lived there. One in particular that we had a really good, positive relationship with. We used to play board games with that individual and so on and so forth. So I think that this community of all communities really understands all of our residents and important connecting with our youth and our elderly. So I think the CARE program is a really important component of connecting not only with the police department, but also with the government.
Our main topic today is social isolation and finding ways to keep residents connected. I understand the police department has a program in place to assist residents living alone. Please tell us more about the CARE program.
Absolutely. The CARE program is a fantastic program. It's a collaboration between the police department and our residents. The residents in the city, whether they're elderly, whether they're disabled, or whether they're recovering from surgeries, can sign up through the police department for a program that will check on them on a daily basis. So what happens is a resident in need, whether they be elderly or disabled, will go to our website. They'll fill out information about their residence, where they live, their phone number, contact information, medical information, so on and so forth. And the police department on a daily basis will check in with them. So the way it works is the resident would, during a prescribed time, call into the police department and let the police department know they were okay. This works, and if the person does not contact the police department, we will reach out to that person to make sure they're okay. If we're unable to make contact, we will respond out to ascertain if they are okay. This has been really helpful for us, not only in the responsive nature, but prior to COVID, we've also been able to have positive interactions with our elderly folks. If they call and say, look, I'm having a bad day, I'd like to talk to somebody, we'll have an officer go out. We've had officers play chess with some people. We've had officers get food for some of our residents. So this is a really important component of developing relationships, and it also allows a lot of our elderly residents who are currently really isolated. Normally they would have family members or a neighbor check in on them, but with COVID, a lot of our elderly residents are really scared to have contact with outsiders. And I want to really stress to people that are concerned about the COVID aspect of this, we are very aware of the need to protect our elderly. As you can see now, I'm wearing a mask. All of our officers wear masks. All of our officers understand the importance of social distancing. So if you're concerned about that, we are very cognizant about that and going to do everything we can to protect our seniors as we're checking on them.
Well, this sounds like a wonderful program. Thank you so much for explaining it to us. How do residents in need who do not have access to the internet participate and learn about how to participate in this program?
Absolutely. If you go to the link, there'll be a phone number where you can call in directly. If you don't have transportation to come out, which many don't, we'll hand deliver the form to you where we can help you fill it out and so on and so forth. Obviously, as you can see, we're wearing masks now. We're very cognizant of the importance of wearing masks and social distancing. So anytime we have contact with the elderly, if that's a concern of theirs, understand that we are going to be cognizant of that, and we are going to wear a mask, and we're going to protect ourselves and be socially distant. So if someone does not have access to the internet, there's phone numbers on the website that they can call, and we'll make sure that we get them the necessary registration information to register for the program.
Oh, that's wonderful. In closing, I'd like to ask you if you have a general vision for the police department going forward during this pandemic and beyond.
That's a really good question. One of the cornerstones of the police department is our outreach to our community. The COVID-19 pandemic has really altered the way we do a lot of our community engagement. We did not have our Cornerstone National Night Out event, which brings the community from all over the city together in one location. We haven't been able to do our Coffee with a Cop events. We haven't been able to do our homework program. We haven't been able to do our Explorer program. So we're trying to find ways via Zoom and other mechanisms to really connect with people. But now more than ever, and I cannot stress enough how important it is to have these connections with our community. And we also not only, most importantly with our youth, but we also want to have it with our elderly folks who really, really feel scared and isolated. I mean, this is a disease, or this is a pandemic that's extremely scary to the elderly especially. So we really want to remain connected through outreach, but we also want to be cognizant of the national narrative in policing. We do a lot of things right here in the city of Takoma Park, but we're very open to doing things better. One of the things that we're looking at doing is embedding mental health counselors with our patrol staff. Uh-huh. These people would be able to not only respond to calls for service with our officers, but also be responsive. And this has implications with our elderly folks as well. Because if we respond to a call where someone is in need, these mental health counselors would also be able to help our elderly in getting to doctor's appointments and getting medications they need and connecting with family members that may be disconnected. So I see a way that also could tie into our elderly population.
That is a fabulous idea. I think that's going to be very well received and popular. I want to thank you for all this information, and I wish you a long and healthy and safe career with our city of Takoma Park. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. It's been a pleasure to be here.
In addition to the effect of social isolation on some of the residents in this community, the entire community has been dealing with several social issues during this pandemic and looking to the city's leadership in this time of stress. Recently, the city of Takoma Park filled an important role in the administration, that of Deputy City Manager. Good afternoon and welcome, Ms. Clarke.
Thank you,
Thank
Paula.
you for taking time from your busy schedule to have a conversation with us this afternoon.
It's my pleasure. Thanks for having me on.
For those residents who may not be familiar with you, please tell us a little about your background and how long you've been Deputy City Manager for the City of Takoma Park.
Sure, I'd love to. And again, I think this show is a great idea, so thanks for organizing it. And we look forward to getting many more city employees on the show. So my name is Jessica. I started with the city back in April. So I started smack dab in the middle of the pandemic. When I interviewed for this position, the community center was full of people, full of activity. We had seniors playing foosball and ping pong and dancing in the dance studio and kids running through. And then by the time I started, it was empty and just City Manager Ludlow and myself. So it was a strange time to start. We were, just starting the proposed budget review with City Council, and we were in the middle of this public health crisis. So there's a lot of my colleagues who I still haven't met in person because most of our staff is still working remote. And there's a lot of our viewers who I'm sure I haven't had a chance to meet in person just because of the pandemic. So it certainly was a eventful time to start with the city. But my background is in local government. So I'm from Baltimore originally. I grew up in Baltimore. I went to graduate school at Georgetown and here in DC, so I am somewhat familiar with the area. I got my master's in public policy. But I think what really inspired me to go into public service was, so my parents are both in public service, but also I did Peace Corps for 2 years in Cameroon.
Ah.
That was right after my undergraduate degree in political science. And I was in northern Cameroon and I was working with a lot of local nonprofits there that were having a hard time getting assistance to people in need because the local government was so dysfunctional. And so that inspired me to come back here and get involved in my hometown, in the city government of Baltimore, where I grew up, and to try to improve the high crime rate there and the high poverty rates there. And so I spent 2 years with the finance department in Baltimore, where I learned all about the budget, how to engage the community around the budget, how to protect fiscal resources at the municipal level. And then I actually moved over to manage the demolition division in the housing department. So I was pretty well-rounded when I came to Takoma Park. I had experience in emergency operations, in stabilizing unsafe housing structures with the housing department. I had experience in management, managing my demolition team, and I had experience in budgeting and performance accountability through the Baltimore City Finance Department. And I've really been impressed since I've come here to Takoma Park. What drew me to Takoma Park is really how engaged citizens are here, how Takoma Park has really kept its distinctive personality over decades and has really been a regional and national leader on progressive policy issues, like especially climate policy and other issues. And so it's just really a dream job for me to work here. I want to have a long career in local government. It's excellent to work under the mentorship of City Manager Ludlow, who's very committed to high quality government and to performance accountability and innovation. And so we have a great team here, and the community has welcomed me, to the extent that they can during a pandemic, and it's been a great first 6 months. So you're catching me at the end of my first 6 months with the city. So.
Oh, well, it's wonderful that you're here.
Yeah.
We were just talking to Chief DeVaul about the CARE program, and I've shared some programs that the Recreation Department is doing. Are there other programs that the city is doing or has plans to do to combat social isolation?
Yes, there are, and I know it's really a problem not just for seniors but for all of us. I mean, that's one of, I think, the biggest challenges that's really wearing on residents in the city. So a couple of things. First, I wanted to thank you for the excellent virtual programming that the Recreation Department is offering. You all really jumped right on it as soon as the pandemic started. We've got yoga for seniors virtually. What else are you doing? Zumba Gold,
line dancing.
All
kinds of things.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And I know not everyone's figured out Zoom yet, but that's excellent. The Phone a Neighbor program I know has been a real help to a lot of our seniors. And then, of course, Chief DeVaul already talked about the CARE program. I did want to say that if you call the city's main line, so that's 301-891-7100, we can direct you to any city service that you need, answer any questions that you have. And if there's any services for seniors that the city isn't currently providing, please call that number, let us know, and we'll work with our staff to try to provide it. So if you're having issues, please don't hesitate to call our main line. And then, as you know, we mail out our newsletter. Our newsletter has a lot of what events and programming are coming up. So read your newsletter when it comes in the mail. But also a couple other things I wanted to highlight. All of our council hearings are now virtual. So that's actually been kind of one way that I would say the pandemic has helped the city, in that a lot more people are able to engage more easily in our community input process around council hearings. And a lot of people don't know that if you struggle with Zoom, you can still call in, so you don't necessarily have to use video.
Oh, that's good to know.
Yeah, you can call in to the council hearings via Zoom, and if you need assistance with that, again, call the city's main line if you just want to tune in and listen to the council hearings, and you can always give public comments as well. And then I also wanted to highlight that the Takoma Park Arts and Humanities Division has an e-newsletter and has also been hosting a lot of new online events. So they've got Latin guitar concerts, they've got poetry readings, vintage movie nights. So our Arts and Humanities Division has a lot of great events coming up. Also, our library is offering a books to go service, and you can call their line at 301-580-0085 to order books and have assistance selecting books. And then Friends of Takoma Park Library is actually partnering with Victory Tower to do book delivery to seniors.
Oh, that's great.
So if you're interested in book delivery, we may be able to work something out. So again, if you call that library number and you'd like books delivered, that's something we can work on. And then I don't know if you mentioned Halloween yet, but Halloween's coming up, and there are going to be some socially distanced activities as part of that. I know our recreation director, Greg Clark, has set up 7 one-way trick-or-treat locations around the city. So
right.
I think it's something that seniors who want to get out and about could come to without being too much at risk, and see the kids kind of parade through. And then we also have a Sligo Creek Walk and Chalk event, which again is going to be we're going to close down a part of Sligo Creek Parkway, so there'll be plenty of room to distance there if you want to get out for a walk on Halloween Day. And then I did want to put in a mention for the Village of Takoma Park. They're an excellent organization. It's really neighbors helping neighbors, and with a particular focus on older adults. And they are doing walking groups. They're offering, I think they're doing a virtual tour of the National Art Gallery coming up. They've got Aging Well events. So definitely check them out at thevillageoftacomapark.com. And then part of our role too as the city is to keep residents informed about county and state resources. So I think in the Forever Young newsletter, Paula, you already mentioned the resource packet for older adults from Montgomery County. That has a lot of resources, and you can always call the County Aging Services Division at 240-777-3000. And then the state of Maryland also has a caregiver services corps for seniors, where all you have to do is call 211 and you can be connected to a help center to have volunteers help you with anything you need, from preparing meals, picking up groceries, getting medications, anything like that. And that call center at 211 is available 7 days a week and is capable of taking calls in many languages. But again, feel free to call our main line, the main line in the city. And again, that's 301-891-7100. And we're happy to work with you on any services that you need from the city.
Oh, that's terrific. Thank you so much. It's great information.
Yep.
I also understand that you're involved with the Takoma Park Racial Equity Initiative, something new I wasn't aware of.
Yeah.
Can you tell us more about it?
I can. Yes. So I'm, in my role as Deputy City Manager, I serve as our de facto Racial Equity Coordinator. And this racial equity is something that city leadership has been committed to for several years now. So a lot of cities are just kind of getting into the space as a result of George Floyd and other incidents across the country. But Takoma Park was really ahead of the curve. Back in 2017, our city council passed a racial equity framework that committed the city to applying a racial equity lens to all of our decision making. And council also made racial equity one of our policy priorities to guide our budget and all our city services. And so over the past couple years, to implement that racial equity framework, we've already taken a lot of different actions. So We were very involved in regional organizations like the Metropolitan Washington Council of Governments, as well as the Government Alliance for Racial Equity, GARE, as well as the National League of Cities Racial Equity Work Group. And so we've been mixing it up with other cities and exchanging ideas about how to make things more equitable for our Black and brown communities here in the city. And then we've also, a lot of our council retreats have been focused on racial equity. We brought an intern in to do some best practices research around racial equity. We also, there's so much, it's almost like hard to remember it all.
That sounds like a lot.
Right. We did a resident survey where we surveyed residents to hear directly from residents of all races, all backgrounds. We also are doing some demographic surveys of our city committees that advise council, as well as our city staff, to see how we can get people of all races involved in everything that we do. And then most recently, and I don't know if Chief DeVaul touched on this, but we're going to have a Reimagine Policing Task Force. And so that is going to have some great recommendations for how to make our public safety more equitable as we move forward. But I think from my perspective, what I'm trying to do is get more of our staff trained in racial equity to understand the disparities in the city. So, obviously Takoma Park, we are a majority minority city, so we are an incredibly diverse community. A lot of our Black and brown residents have higher levels of unemployment, lower levels of education, lower rates of home ownership, for instance. So through our Housing and Economic Development Strategic Plan and through the internal task force that we're starting with staff, and by getting more staff thinking about racial equity and discussing how and evaluating with City Council whether our projects are having the intended impact, are helping the people who need help the most. We hope that we can really advance racial equity in the city. And I think long term, we really want to have really a strategic plan around racial equity.
Right.
So that may be something in the cards for the new city council.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Yeah.
Oh, that's great information. Thank you. Finally, as COVID-19 continues to be a big part of our lives, how do you see the city of Takoma Park bouncing back after the pandemic?
That is a big question, Paula. And I was talking with City Manager Ludlow about it this morning. We're not out of the woods yet, right? Right. Our infection rate is higher than Montgomery County's. We continue to see new cases reported each week. It's getting lower. So, back in April and May, we were seeing, just under 100 new cases reported each week. Now we're down to maybe under 50. So that's good. So the number of new cases being reported is decelerating. So that is a good sign. But we're seeing upticks around the region, right? Yeah. And so as a community, we have to continue to wear masks, we have to continue to social distance, and we now have testing available every Wednesday for free with no appointment needed up on the Washington Adventist University campus. So that people should definitely know that we do have testing available. So we're still trying to think ahead for what a post-pandemic Takoma Park looks like, right? And how we can continue to follow county public health guidelines and be very cautious about reopening. So we are not trying to rush to reopen. We're trying to keep our city staff safe and our residents safe, and encourage people to follow all county guidelines. That said, so it was kind of a good thing that the pandemic hit before council had approved the proposed budget, because we were able to add more money to our reserves in case the public health crisis does impact our revenues in out years. We also were able to set up an emergency assistance fund for city residents. It's $634,000, and our Housing and Community Development Department is working hard to get direct financial assistance to businesses and to vulnerable residents in the city. So that I think certainly will add to Takoma Park's resiliency coming out of this crisis. But I think the city we had a very clear direction of where we wanted to go policy-wise even before the pandemic started. Right. So we have our climate action plan. We know what we want to do there. There's a lot involved with that. We have our housing and community development strategic plan. We need to implement that. And so our staff have been continuing to work on that remotely, but we look forward to the extent that that has to be in person. We're looking forward to hitting the ground running when the pandemic's over. But it's certainly a challenging time, and we're definitely not out of the woods yet.
Well, I really appreciate all the hard work, and I know it's a lot of hard work, but goes behind the scenes that people don't know, and thinking about keeping us safe, that's a priority. And I want to thank you again for joining us today.
Sure.
Jessica Clarke, Deputy City Manager, and I wish you a long and happy association with the city.
Thank you so much, Paula. This was a lot of fun.
Thank you.
Thanks.
During these difficult times, it's good to enjoy those things that comfort us and bring us joy. Relax now and enjoy the following haiku poetry by Kathleen O'Toole, Takoma Park's Poet Laureate. Afterwards, Alice Sims of Art for the People will lead us in a simple drawing demo that we can try at home. We'll end this program with some charming images from our recent Halloween event. Playing dress up and having fun is an activity which delights people of all ages. And now a few moments with Kathleen O'Toole.
Hi, I'm Kathleen O'Toole, and I'm the 4th Poet Laureate of Takoma Park. I'm delighted to be with you today, and thanks to our Park Recreation staff for inviting me to share some thoughts on how poetry may be a way for us to stay connected to each other and to the world, even while we need to be socially isolated for our own safety and the safety of others. So in March and April, when I first had to lock down with my family, I found myself turning to poetry for consolation, for inspiration, but honestly, I wasn't writing much poetry in those days because, like I think all of us, I was feeling disrupted, uprooted, sad, and a little bit confused. In fact, the third week of March, I would have been right here at Victory Towers in downtown Takoma Park doing an interactive poetry writing workshop with the residents, and that may include some of you. So what I finally discovered in those first weeks of the Corona cloister, I call it, was that even though I couldn't write about my feelings because I wasn't that clear, I started writing haiku. And I don't know if any of you know about the haiku poetry form, which is it's from Japan, and there are lots of different versions of how to write haiku in English. But the main thing that I want to emphasize, and maybe to invite you to think about as we get into fall and again the need to isolate ourselves, is that this is an opportunity to notice small things in the world around us that have the potential to make us feel a part of the world that we're actually withdrawing from. So here's what I'm going to say about haiku, then I'm going to read a couple of my own poems, and then maybe invite you to make this part of your own daily practice in isolation that might help us feel more connected to each other and to the world around us. So there are two things. I learned about haiku from a very unusual poet and a character and a friend of mine 30 years ago, who was one of the first people writing these little poems in English, having read a lot of the Japanese. And basically it's a short, usually 3-line poem that captures a fleeting experience, a moment of awareness that links human nature to the world around us, to nature. So that's one thing, that it's a connection between nature and human nature. The other way to think of haiku is that it's a short poem that expresses emotion, but at the sensory level. In other words, we're not talking about our feelings, but what it is that we see in the world around us that evokes feelings in us. So let me share a few of the haiku that I wrote. You'll notice the seasonal references. These were mostly in March and April during the first weeks of our pandemic lockdown. March rain, hyacinth in a vase, scent of spring. Now, I'm going to read each poem twice because they go by really fast. So maybe you close your eyes a second time and see if you can picture or feel the experience. March, rain, hyacinth in a vase, scent of spring. Lockdown, day 5, on the star magnolia, first blossom. Lockdown, day 5, on the star magnolia, first blossom. I was especially aware of the magnolia because I'd had it transplanted from the backyard to the front, and I was watching it out the window in the first weeks of spring. So notice some of these haiku, even if you're not even able to go outside for a walk or to sit outside your home, you can write these looking out your window. Cabin fever, counting each bud about to bloom. Cabin fever, counting each bud about to bloom. 3 weeks in, outside the bedroom window, a nest of mourning doves. Now, I'm going to be specific here. We couldn't actually see the mourning doves because their nest was on top of our window air conditioner, but we could hear them in the morning. 3 weeks in, outside the bedroom window, a nest of mourning doves. Last night's rain, robin and sparrow splashing in a pothole. Now that was on a bike ride, so I was actually out on a street and I saw the birds splashing first, and then I realized it was an unfilled pothole they were sharing. Last night's rain, robin and sparrow splashing in a pothole. People who've been writing these poems for a long time often say there's a moment of surprise in a haiku or a moment of wonder. There's a lovely book called The Wonder Code written about that in haiku, and that was a surprise for me, was that these birds had made a bird bath out of a pothole. So here's what I'm going to suggest, that maybe for all of us who are feeling a little bit blue as the days get shorter and we know that the risk of the coronavirus is keeping us in, it might be a great practice for all of us, and I'm inviting you to join me just to jot down some of the things that we notice, whether we're in a situation where we can get out a little bit, sit on the patio, take a little walk, or simply be at our windows. Let's think about those little tiny things that help us to feel connected, to feel maybe joyful or grateful to be alive. So here are 3 haiku that I've written in the last month as we turn toward fall. Autumn trail, tree shadows waving among fallen leaves. Autumn trail, tree shadows waving among fallen leaves. Another warm day, shower of leaf fall, October light. I noticed that today, even though it's November, that you get this beautiful light with the leaves kind of drifting down. Another warm day, shower of leaf fall, October light. Now you can't see these poems on the page, but most of them are these little 3-line poems. This one's 2. First autumn chill, still bees in the lavender. First autumn chill, still bees in the lavender. You have to look close to see that one or hear it. So it is the little things that often reflect what we're feeling. Some of us may need to write about our feelings too, but I couldn't do that for a long time. So maybe in this next month, as we go toward Thanksgiving, and maybe some of us are feeling even less connected because we can't be with our families in person, maybe these little poems, these little acts of noticing could reduce that loneliness a little bit, or give us some gratitude just for being alive, even in such stressful, challenging times. So I'm going to leave you with kind of a funny one that I started to write yesterday morning on a walk when I was visiting my own mom, who's having to lock down. But I didn't have the 3rd line, so I'm going to read it to you with a couple of possible 3rd lines, and maybe you could do this on your own. Post-election quiet, foraging squirrels and songbirds. That's the first 2 lines. I got that just taking a little walk in my mom's neighborhood. Post-election quiet, foraging squirrels and songbirds. business as usual. I was trying to get at the fact that they never stopped doing what they were doing, right? So that's one possible third line. Or post-election quiet, foraging squirrels and songbirds, as if we weren't here. Or post-election quiet, foraging squirrels and songbirds, a world apart. So I hope you write some of your own haiku, and I'm hoping that Paula and the Parks and Rec Department might invite me back later to share some more poems as a part of this program. Thanks, and be safe and be joyful.
Hey, I'm Alice Sims, and you're at my house, and I'm going to talk to you about drawing. I want to tell you just a little bit about me. You might already know it. I started the ceramics program for the city of Takoma Park. I used to work with the exhibitions in the city of Takoma Park. I was the first exhibitions person. I have a nonprofit, Art for the People, and our claim to fame is the library mosaic, amongst a lot of other things. But now here we are, stuck at home a lot of the time, and we need something to do that's fun. And the thing that I thought of was drawing, because everybody has something to draw with. You can use a pencil, but if you use a pencil, you have to have a pencil sharpener or some way to sharpen it. You can use pens. You can use a lead pencil that'll always have your lead ready. You can have a magic marker, and you might even have pens that are different colors, which, you know, we could get into later. But today, for the very first drawing class, and drawing is relaxing. It's something nice to do. It doesn't matter what you draw, because it's just something you'll get better the more you draw. You'll get better and better, I guarantee it. So I started out, this is an old process that we used to use, that used to be good for our high school students, where they take off their shoes and they draw them, but only with a line drawing. Like this one. No darks, no shadows, not any values. We'll talk about values later, but in another class. But just a line drawing. So, you know, I have the tick, tick, ticks, which are the line, and the shoelaces, and the tongue. And, you know, some people think you should do a line drawing without ever taking your pen or pencil up from the paper. So it's a continuous line, and if you make a mistake, you make a mistake. It doesn't matter. You might want to draw on napkins. You might want to draw on old paper that people have sent you a letter on the back side. You might want to draw on computer paper. You might want to draw on your walls. You can draw on anything. You know, it's all fine. So I'm going to put this shoe down. Here's another shoe. This was my shoe, just a different shoe that I drew and went around. Some people feel like they're taking the pencil or the pen I used and just touching all around the shoe, and you just go carefully. With contour drawings, you can't go real fast. It's not like sketching where you would kind of, you know, sketch in the shoe. No, you start and you go slowly. And if you make a mistake, you make a mistake. It doesn't matter. I mean, you know, this is the pandemic. We hardly even get out of our houses. Be lucky to get out of your pajamas. So nobody's going to see these unless you want them to see them. And I hope you show them to me at some point. But, you know, that's whatever, up to you. So, I'm going to get rid of these shoes. Now, I don't know, are you able to see these flowers? Should I bring these over a little? I have this bunch of flowers that are not real flowers. They're artificial, and a vase. And for your drawing, for your contour drawing, you can draw a teacup, you could draw a couple of pieces of fruit, you could draw something out of your window, you could draw a tree in your yard, but that's got so many little branches. You can draw a potted plant. There's also drawing from your imagination, but right now what we're going to be doing is drawing what we see, contour drawing. And after you get the gist of that, you can make up things and draw that. So this is typing paper. Now I have better paper. You might have drawing tablets from a while ago, but that's okay. You can just use, and you can use paper that you've put something on the other side. It doesn't, it's all good. Because what you're doing now really is looking at things and thinking about looking. So I have this arrangement of flowers, and I have a very textured vase that they're in with little beads on it. So suppose I started, which is probably a mistake because I may not get all the flowers in there, but that's okay too. Start at the bottom of the vase. And when you're drawing something that's kind of rounded, like a teacup or an orange, the front kind of comes forward and the sides kind of back off a little bit. And then I'll come up, and I'm going to make this face a little small because I want to have room for the flowers. And when you're doing these things, it's totally all right to change anything. Now, you notice this side's kind of in and this side's kind of bulgy. That doesn't really bother me, but if it did, I could go, oh wait, this needs to be much more bulgy there. It's fine. So I'm going to draw these little beads because I think they're interesting. And I think they'll be an interesting thing to go around. And then I have more beads up here. And you notice I'm not counting every bead. I'm not really worrying too much, and the beads maybe could have tilted up much more, but the thing about drawing or any art is you start off and you think, gosh, I can't draw. This is nothing. This is not going to work out. Don't think that. If you think that, tell yourself you're wrong. So, and if you keep going, I guarantee it'll get better and better. So I'm going to do some representation of the weaving. That's my dog. It's helping me do art. And I would go all the way down on that. But I'm going to draw a leaf and another leaf. I'm looking, and these flowers, some of these flowers are little flowers. Oh, for goodness sakes. And some of these flowers are roses, which are different than the little ones. Because roses are kind of round. They're kind of like petals and then a petal and then another petal. So there's my idea of a rose. And some leaves, and this has some leaves, and you notice I'm not shading. I'm not saying this leaf is darker than that. These beads are darker than the other beads. I'm not worried about that today. I'm just thinking about the lines. So there's another rose up here. And another leaf maybe over here. And then there's another flower that's entirely different, like a poinsettia flower. And it makes it interesting that the flowers are different. And then there's a stem thing that comes down here. And there's more of these little teeny flowers that go over here. So, one thing about this is after you draw this whole thing, I'm not through, and you happen to have crayons or magic markers or something, you could color it in. But we're not going to talk about that either today. We're going to talk about value next time. And if you can find some colored pencils or some colored magic markers, we could talk about color the next time. So then up here is another flower. It's kind of a, I don't know, chrysanthemum, but it's different. And I want these flowers, you know, I don't want them to be perfect, but I want you to kind of tell that there's different kinds of flowers here. There's another rose. And I don't want to go all the way off the paper. I mean, I want to kind of plan. Like I don't want my vase to come off of the paper down there. So having a lot of stuff on the vase is going to kind of weight it, I think. And again, we're not worried about one side being darker or lighter, or that this being darker. So I would continue on and loosely do all the flowers. And then, you know, sometimes I even like to if you have a copier, copy this, and then later try different colors and try different things with this one drawing that you've drawn. You know, maybe you have watercolors and you want to wash it, but if you don't have anything but pencils, magic markers, and paper, that's fine, and that's what we're really doing. And you can just relax and really just sink into your drawing and not worry. I would love to see what you're drawing, although I am a very uncritical eye, as you can tell. I'm not critical about mine. It's just fun. It's just relaxing, and you'll get better and better. But if you want to show me something, and you can take a picture of it or whatever, my email is alicesims@aol.com. And you can show me what you're doing. And I hope we're going to do a couple of these. I hope we're going to do some more drawing classes and talk about making things dark, maybe even talk about a little color, but we'll talk about what kind of marks to make a value. Value is dark and light. So I hope we'll go on, and this will, in between these, and I don't even know how long they're going to be in between, keep doing contour drawings. Just draw a teacup, draw a cookie, draw a tree, draw a dead branch in a flower pot. If you have flowers for another reason, maybe you have artificial flowers, which are great because they never go bad, and you can try those. Just draw your shoes, draw everything you can think of, and we'll meet again. And I would love to hear from you. Okay. Thank you. Thank you so much for watching this. This is fun. If I didn't have art during this pandemic, I think I would be way less happy. I would be quite unhappy because it gives me something to do and a way to grow and a way to learn more things, and it's very nice.
On our next program, we'll explore ways to stay active, mind and body, even during a pandemic. We'll have discussions with Gregory Clarke, Director of the Takoma Park Recreation Department, and Cynthia Luna, Certified Health and Wellness Coach, and so much more. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.